Welcome back to Midday. We start the show off with Abbott Wealth Management. We have Shelby Volo joining us, along with Leah Card from Fulton and Company. So thank you both for being here.
Yeah.
We're talking about protecting your estate, as we have been talking about throughout the entire month of March with Abbott. So we've touched on many different topics, Shelby, but today is specifically about, I guess, wills, but how that works with blended families and you know, things like that. It's a bit, can be complicated, right?
Yeah, and Leah's our specialist.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's why she's
time
here
to talk about this today, because it is coming up more and more that there is wills being contested, and especially in blended families, Leah was saying.
Okay, so what are you seeing then, Leah, mostly, and what do you want people to know?
Yeah, the starting point is that British Columbia is pretty unique because we actually have laws that allow an unhappy child or an unhappy spouse to challenge a will if they think they haven't been given enough in that will.
Okay.
So they don't just have to accept what the will says, they can hire a lawyer and contest that will.
Okay.
And it has to be done within certain time frames, but the message is that that's happening all the time in British Columbia. It's a common source of litigation. So we're seeing a lot of it definitely through our office, and it's coming up in, as I've discussed with Shelby before, in two main situations, primarily relating to blended families. That's a huge source of litigation and strife, and then also black sheep children.
Which you hate to say that, but it happens, right?
It's
in
reality
many families.
now.
We have some slides. Let's put these up and give sort of people a visual idea of what we're talking about here. So yes, contesting wills is what you were just saying, Leah. So yeah, let's put the next slide up here. There we go. So this is a bit of a breakdown, and what you're talking about, a blended family, typical nuclear family. That's interesting.
Non-divorced families, which we're seeing less and less of now.
Unfortunately,
it's very much going to the blended style of family.
Right.
Yes.
So when people are thinking about creating a will, then what would be their first step if they found themselves, you know, in a situation like that, in a blended family, or in a situation that isn't the nuclear family, if you will?
Right. So their first step should really be their lawyer's office, because they need to get some advice about how their situation is complicated because of the ability of a spouse or a child to sue against the will. So, for example, we see litigation arising out of blended families in a number of situations. One might be, it's a second marriage, and the will of the first spouse to die was done years and years ago, decades ago, maybe even before that second relationship started.
Right.
And it was never updated to reflect that there's now been a new spouse in the picture for decades. And then when that will maker dies, that second spouse is really unprovided for in the will. So that's a source of challenge. Also, we see allegations from the children in that blended family situation saying...
I could see that happening.
Yeah, saying that that new spouse is not actually a spouse. Saying that it's actually a boyfriend, girlfriend, companion, roommate. So those kind of questions are brought up. We also, of course, are helping our clients through that almost impossible to achieve perfect balance between new spouse and children from the first relationship. So we do a lot of planning work with clients, and then sometimes if that planning is never done, and there is an inequity in that scale of justice, then that's where, after the will maker dies, there's almost guaranteed to be some litigation if the estate's sizable enough to warrant it.
Right. Okay. And it can get really interesting, hey?
Yeah, because the other thing that's happening is the disinherited child. So when people are wanting to say, I don't want to leave any money to this child, which does come up in financial planning as well. And then Leah can chime in about what happens if you do fully leave a child out of your will.
And what can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Yes.
And there's a lot of really juicy stories out there. But so that unhappy child, if they've been given less than their siblings, or even a share that's not big enough, or they've been left out completely, they can litigate, they can sue the estate. And then it's up to the court to consider all the factors and weigh what's fair, because the court's just going to apply a fairness lens on the situation, and they're going to say, what would be fair, just, and equitable in this circumstance?
Right. So You know, it's interesting because it's I think something that people should really take seriously, because you know, I'm sure you have many examples of how things can really get messy.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, you know, this person who was a loved one has now passed on, and yet everyone's fighting about who gets what after that, right? And it's unfortunate. So to avoid that situation, get the lawyer first. That's your first step then, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, and I know
Very
it's something
important.
you see too, like you mentioned, Shelby, a lot in the financial side of things.
Yeah, from a beneficiary perspective with your children, for sure. Okay. Especially when one's estranged, right? That's when this exact situation probably does come up.
Yeah.
So, yes, we always advise not to leave one person out, just like Leah was saying. And you said the equal test is best, right?
Equal is always best.
And then it's harder to go through the Wills Variation Act, essentially.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Good reminder, and we really appreciate you joining us, Leah, as well. For more information, you can visit Abbott Wealth Management, and Fulton and Company is where Leah is, where you can find her. So thank you very much, ladies. We appreciate that. We're back in a couple of minutes. We are talking about the Junior Dragon Stand competition here on Midday, and we'll meet 2 more finalists. Stay with us.